Winderboys, and in this lesson we will be tackling Pareto's principle, where we can learn the Pareto's principle history, how this topic helps or suit into the business, Pareto's principle analogy, and how Pareto's principle be applied in our daily lives. First, I will be showing you the members of our group. First is Ralph Edward D. Cantonos as Hustler, Marcelo Macchio as Hacker, and Irish Evaristo, Maclores de Leon, Ivan Lawrence San Diego, James Aaron Espeo, and Arjan Paul de Guzman as Hipster. Pareto's Principle. Pareto's Principle History. The Pareto principle is named after Italian economist Vilfredo Pareto or Vildo, who in 1906 observed his country Italy and found out that 80% of its land was owned by only 20% of the people. They studied extent and found out that the 80 and 20 thing also transpire in other countries. Furthermore, the Pareto principle, now mostly called as the 80-20 rule, does not imply on land ownership only. It can actually be seen in many aspects of society, business, and life in general. So, yung Pareto principle daw is dinevelop siya ni Vilfredo Pareto or Vildo ng 1906 na where na natagpuan niya yung land niya is 80% of its land is not owned by the people but 20% lang daw. Ngayon, yung Pareto principle daw is mostly called na siya na as 80-20 rule dahil it can actually be seen in many aspects of society such as business and life in general.
Next is we have Pareto's principle. Pareto's principle is also known as 80-70 or vice versa. And Pareto's principle uses in different like field in our life, like business, life in society, and life in general. For business, 20% of the worker produce 80% of the result. 20% of the customer create 80% of the revenue. 20% of the product accounts for 80% of the sales. For the society, 20% of criminals commit 80% of crimes. 20% of beer drinkers drink 80% of beer in the world. 80% of factories pollution originates from 20% of all factories. 20% of students have grades 80% or higher. For life in general, 20% of an average person activity is the reason for 80% of his progress. And lastly, 80% of happiness brought about by friendship actually comes from 20% of your friends only. Pareto's principle analogy. If you put a effort 20%, you will have the outcome of 80%. And 20% it's called the input, and the outcome is the 80% is called output. If you increase your effort like 80%, and also you will have the 20% output. Now, let me explain this in a better way sa alam ko para mas ma-appreciate natin kung ano nga ba ang Pareto's principle. Let's say merong teacher na mag-undergo ng evaluation. At evaluation ay ginagawa yon sa isang teacher para malaman kung gaano ba ka-effective yung way of teaching niya. Example, if the teachers give her or his effort at 20%, the students will gain 20%. Eh, paano naging 20-80 yun, ano? So, basically, yung 20% yun yung effort na ibigay mo. And then, 80% yun yung outcome. And then, outcome can be a negative outcome and positive outcome. Sa example na binigay ko, malamang sa malamang, babagsak yung teacher doon sa evaluation kasi nga, 20% lang yung binigay niyang effort doon sa student and doon siya ginigrades sa evaluation para malaman kung gaano siya ka-effective, and 80% is yung ignorance ng isang estudyante.
What does this indicate? It simplifies indicates the most things in life are not equally distributed, leading to the facts that the 80/20 rule implies that in any given situation, 80% of the effects in this is produced by 20% of the causes. It is always 80/20. No, it could actually be a lot stiffer, 85/15, 90/10, 93/7, etc. It can also be a bit smaller, 70/30, 74/26, and etc. It is always 100 when added. It is always added when added. No, it could also be a 85/20, 74/10, 91/32, etc. So why it is being called the 80/20 rule? The 80/20 rule thing in relation to its nowadays application should not be treated as exact entities but rather a symbolic number. So this slide discusses the 80/20 rule, also known as the PARETO principle, which states that in many cases, roughly 80% of the effects come from 20% of the causes. This principle applies to the wide range of situations including business, economics, and personal productivity. It emphasizes that the 80/20 ratio is not always exact and can vary depending on the specific situation. The key takeaway is that a small number of causes often have a disproportionately large impact on the outcomes. It also highlights that the 80/20 rule is a useful tool for identifying the prioritizing the most important factors in any given situation by focusing on the 20% of causes that produce 80% of the effects. Individuals and organizations can achieve greater efficiency and effectiveness. What does it indicate? No matter what the ratio are, the bottom line is it leads us to certainty that the minority of the causes produces the majority of the effects. Same as on the other side, that the majority of the causes produces the minority of effects. This teaches us to focus on the more important aspect of life, the vital few, making us to do more by doing less. So, this presentation highlights the importance of focusing on the most important aspects of life, the vital few, in enabling us to achieve more by doing less. It emphasizes that minority of causes often produce the majority of effects, while the majority of causes produce minority of effects. This principle, known as the Pareto principle or the 80/20 rule, suggests that 80% of outcomes stem from 20% of causes. It encourages us to identify and prioritize the vital few aspects of our lives, whether in personal productivity, business endeavor, or overall well-being. By focusing our efforts on these key areas, we can achieve greater efficiency and effectiveness, leading to more significant result with less effort.
Good day everyone, I am Irish M. Evaristo and I am one of the reporter of this group. Today, we discuss the Pareto's Principle. How can a Pareto's Principle be applied in business? To increase revenue, you could try to first is increase sales. The more you sell, the more profits you should make. Negotiate better deals with your suppliers. Better deals means is kung paano kayo mabe-benefits parehas ng suppliers mo. Next one is yung cut excess overheads. Companies often retrench staff to do so. So, ang ibig sabihin nito is yung pagbabawas ng manpower. Next is yung increase prices. If you can sell the same amount of goods at higher prices, you will make more profits. So, yung example nito is yung isang brand ng cellphone, which is alam naman natin parehas na yung iPhone. Yung iPhone is top of the line. So, mataas din yung price niya or yung value niya. And so on. In short, eliminate waste and improve the process, which is Lean Six Sigma. Can a company do all these things simultaneously? Of course not. Because in business, you generally don't have the resources, time, energy, and management focus to do everything at once. So, sa business, di naman kaya na pagsabayin-sabayin lahat ng yon. Secondly, the Pareto's Principle teaches us that not everything is equally important. What we should do is identify those actions, the vital few, that will result in the biggest increase in profits, then focus first on it. So, prioritize first the most important one and focus on it. Not using 80-20 wisely may cause the business to prioritize the least important, which is definitely do not constitute a leap forward. So, ang next po is yung yung graph po ng customer complaints. This is the graph for the reason for customer complaints. Kung ano yung mga dahilan o reklamo ng isang customer. So, sa first graph is makikita natin yung missing parts, which is ang number of complaints niya is 100, and yung sa percentage naman, kung magkakaroon ng straight line dito is makikita na 40%, yung 100 of complaints is may 40%. And next one is yung wrong color, which is sabihin na natin na 75 number of complaints siya na nagli-lead sa 30%. And does not work. Ang number of complaints niya is 50 and may 20% siya. And yung all other o yung iba pa ay nagli-lead siya ng 25 number of complaints, which is 10%.
Okay, next topic. Before that, I'll introduce myself. My name is Arjun Paul Billy Guzman, and today I'll be talking about the Pareto chart. In order to know more about the Pareto chart, you should head over to Microsoft Excel. The Pareto chart is easy to make in Excel. You can use the mobile version or the PC one. I'm going to use the mobile version because I don't have a laptop. Here we have a list of parts and services. The name Amamoto Parts and Services. The items here are the tires, gasoline, spark plugs, cylinders, tools, bumpers, external decorations, clutch, wheels, and the miscellaneous. And here we have this is the number of sales. You can say number of sales in a year. Oh no, it's this is 6 months. 6 months. First step in making a Pareto's graph is arrange in alphabetical order. As you can see here, we will arrange it in alphabetical order, and after that, we will arrange the number of cells from greatest to least. As we can see here in what I'm about to do here in Excel. Now that we arrange everything else in the Excel, the data, the second step is to add up all number of cells, just like this shown in the video. In PC, you can just use auto sum from one cell to another. Like in here you will see, I will just add up the number of cells by using auto sum as well. Now that we have finished the second step, which is adding the number of cells, the next step, the third step, is doing a cumulative frequency cell, or let's just type here CF, cumulative frequency cell. Okay, after making a cumulative frequency cell, let's just do this simple formula. Let's just like here, this cell, you just make it like this, and then equal sign after this one. Okay, below this cell, we will use this formula right here. We will do a cumulative adding. After that, after getting the cumulative frequency, we should see here that the final cumulative frequency here at the bottom will match the number of cells, the sum of all the number of cells. Now that we are finished getting the cumulative frequency, the fourth step is creating a percent cell, just like this. What we want to do here is use the formula equal sign, then the cell number, then you will use the division sign, which is a slash. And because we want to use this number right here, we'll put a dollar sign first, then the cell number again. For example, like it's shown here in this video. Now that we have done everything else, we should fix the decimal places. But first, we should go to this function and turn this into percentage. Then adjust the decimal place. You can do 1 decimal place to 2 decimal place until it reaches to 100%, just like shown, just like what I did here. On to the next part, the fifth step is creating a cell for a cumulative percent. It's like here. You should just write a CP, just like this. Just like we did to cumulative frequency, we will use this formula to create cumulative percent. And once we're done, you will see that the last value, which will be 100%, and it will match up the percent cell, which is also 100%. And lastly, after all the steps, this is the last step. We will generate our Pareto chart. So let's highlight the items, number of sales, and the cumulative frequency. But let's not add, not cumulative frequency, the cumulative percent. We're not going to add the percent cell and the cumulative frequency. And now this is our Pareto chart, showing all the details that we need could also put labels on this chart, but it's not available here in this version. On the PC one, it is available. But so I'm only going to show you the available parts. It's like this. Okay, to those who know the 80-20 rule, this concept is important to understand because it helps us identify which initiative to prioritize so that we can make the most impact and impact and focus to the most marketing effect, which is that 20%. And now let's move on to the next reporter.
Now we're gonna discuss how can Pareto principle be applied on our daily lives. How do you apply the Pareto principle in your daily life? You can spend 20% of your time at work on the tasks that bring you 80% of success. Spend more time doing what is more important and makes a difference. You can apply this anything in life, including personal goals such as fitness and health. First, social interaction. Social interaction. The 8 and 20 rule was once golden rule for of effective social media marketing. It states that 80% of social media posts should inform, educate, and entertain your audience, while 20% should directly promote your business. The Pareto principle states that for many events, roughly 80% of the effect come from 20% of the causes. Aiming at the case deficiency in social network decision field, he put a forward case conforming to the Pareto principle. Next is relationship. For relationship, the Pareto principle specifies that 80% of consequences come from 20% of the causes, asserting an unequal relationship between inputs and outputs. Pareto analysis states that 80% of a project results of due to 20% of the work, or conversely, 80% of the problems can be traced to 20% of the cause. When it comes to your relationship, the 8-20 rule centers on the idea of one person cannot meet 100% of your needs all the time. Each of you permitted to take fraction of your time, 20% away from your partner to take part in more self-fulfilling activities and resume your individuality. Try to find somebody that you find perfect 80% of the time and imperfect other at 20% of the time. It is unrealistic to think that somebody will be perfect 100% of the time. This parental analysis can also help you with your social life. Now, this is day-to-day usual activity. 1 to 3 hours in television, 3 to 6 hours in gadgets, 2 to 4 hours in your friends or relatives, 0 to 1 hour on your books, and 0 to 30 minutes to your family, and 0 to 10 minutes exercise.
So my name is Ivan Lawrence San Diego, or the hipster. So to summarize all the report, so Pareto's principle, also known as the 80-20 rule, states that for many outcomes, roughly 80% of consequences come from 20% of causes. So in other words, a small percentage of causes have an outsized effect. So this principle is important because it can help you identify which initiative to prioritize so you can make the most impact. So for example, in business, you might find that 80% of your sales come from 20% of your customers. Or you might find that 80% of your problems are caused by 20% of your processes. So by identifying these vital few causes, you can focus your efforts on fixing them, which will have a big impact on your overall results. So, ito yung mga example on how Pareto's principle can be applied in different areas of life. So, in business, for example, 80% of sales come from 20% of customers. 80% of profits come from 20% of products or services, and etc. Next is time management. 80% of your results come from 20% of your activities. 80% of your distractions come from 20% of the people and things in your life. And lastly, in personal finances, 80% of your debt comes from 20% of your spending categories. 80% of your wealth comes from 20% of your investments. So, Pareto's principle is important because it can help you focus your time and energy sa mga bagay na importante. So, you can also help identify and eliminate waste and efficiency. So, by understanding how Pareto's principle works, you can make better decisions and achieve your goals more efficiently. So, ito yung mga tips on how to use Pareto's principle in your life. So, first is to identify the vital few. So, ano nga ba yung 20% na yon na nagkakos sa 80% mo sa 80% mo of your result. So, once you know these are, you can focus your efforts on them. Next is eliminate the trivial many. So, huwag ka daw magsayang ng oras or lakas sa mga bagay na maliit lang yung nagagawang impact. Instead, mag-focus ka daw sa mga vital few that are making the biggest difference. Third is prioritize your tasks and activity. Use Pareto's principle to prioritize your to-do list and focus on the tasks that will have the biggest impact. And lastly, delegate and outsource. If there are tasks that are not in the vital few, so consider delegating or outsourcing them to someone else. Ginawa mo daw to, this will free up your time so you can focus on things that matter most. So, by following these tips daw, you can use Pareto's principle to improve your productivity, efficiency, and overall result. So, yun lang po yung report namin. Thank you po sa pakinig.